When I look out at you today, I can feel it. Something in this room is shifting. You didn't just stumble into this moment. You didn't just click on this video because you were bored. No, something in your spirit was tugged. Something in you recognized that heaven was whispering your name. And I believe with everything in me that this message appeared in your life because God has been watching, preparing, and waiting for the exact moment when your heart was ready to receive what he has been trying to place within you. Sometimes God hides things from us, not to punish us, but to protect us. Sometimes he delays the blessing because the blessing would have crushed us if it came too soon. But today feels like a divine appointment. Today feels like God saying, you're ready now. Not perfect, not put together, not flawless, just ready. Ready to see differently, ready to believe differently, ready to walk differently. And if you'll lean in with me, I believe God is about to unlock something in you that has been waiting for this exact moment to breathe. When we talk about God's timing, we often picture something distant, something abstract, something that feels almost impossible to grasp. We imagine God seated outside of time, looking down at our lives like a tapestry he sees completed, even while we're still tangled in the threads. And while that is true, he is Alpha and Omega. We often forget that God's timing is deeply connected to our development. It isn't just about when something is supposed to happen. It is about who you must become for that moment to be sustainable. Because God is not the God of unfinished stories. He is the God who refuses to place a crown on a head that hasn't grown strong enough to carry its weight. Understanding God's timing begins with understanding that readiness is rarely about how you feel. You may feel unprepared, inadequate, or overwhelmed, and God will still say you're ready. Or you may feel eager, impatient, hungry for more, and God will say not yet. Because readiness is not emotional. Readiness is spiritual. Readiness is internal alignment. Readiness is when your character, your spirit, your discipline, and your capacity finally catch up with the prayers you've been praying. There are times when you have asked God for something good, something pure, something aligned with his will, and still he didn't release it. You prayed for opportunities, relationships, healing, financial breakthrough, clarity, purpose, elevation, but heaven stayed silent. Not because God rejected your requests, but because the version of you who prayed that prayer didn't yet know how to steward what you were asking for. God will not give destiny to a version of you that cannot handle it. He will not open doors that your character cannot keep open. He will not place you on platforms that your humility cannot survive. And he will not pour blessings into a vessel that is cracking under the weight of comparison, fear, insecurity, or pride. You see, God's timing is deeply protective. He knows when you are healed enough to move forward. He knows when you have finally let go of the voices that haunted you. He knows when the trauma that once defined you no longer controls you. He knows when your heart is no longer fragile enough to hand itself back to the wrong people. He knows when you have matured enough to handle rejection without viewing it as abandonment. God knows the moment your identity becomes rooted enough in him that you stop shrinking to fit the opinions of others. That is readiness. Readiness is when your heart stops clinging to what God has already tried to remove. Readiness is when you stop negotiating with dysfunction. Readiness is when you stop idolizing seasons God called you out of. And sometimes, beloved, readiness comes in the form of a breaking, because there are seasons when God will not promote you until what once held you has been completely shattered. Not because he wants to harm you, but because he knows that if he blesses you while you're still attached to what broke you, your blessing will become contaminated by your wounds. But here's what we often miss. God does not measure readiness the way we do. We measure readiness by resources. God measures readiness by resilience. We measure readiness by how much we have. God measures readiness by how much we can surrender. We measure readiness by external progress. God measures readiness by internal transformation. This is why some of the most powerful moments in your life happened when you felt the least qualified. This is why some of your greatest breakthroughs came during your weakest moments. Because readiness is not about perfection, it's about positioning. When your heart postures itself in surrender, heaven calls that readiness. And if we're being honest, many of us have misinterpreted delays as denials. We assume that because it didn't happen when we asked, it wasn't meant for us. But God has a way of protecting what is yours until you're mature enough to receive it. He has a way of holding back what you thought you were ready for, so that when he finally releases it, it doesn't slip through your fingers. And sometimes the greatest blessing he can give you is not the thing you prayed for, it's the time he took preparing you before giving it. Because preparation produces longevity. Preparation produces stability. Preparation keeps you from sabotaging what you've been anointed to carry. God's timing is also strategic. He knows what's happening around you. He knows what's happening within you. He knows what's going to happen ahead of you. And he aligns every detail to ensure that when the blessing arrives, it arrives in an atmosphere where it can thrive. Think of how many moments in your life felt delayed but were really divinely orchestrated. Had the opportunity come earlier, you might have underestimated it. Had the relationship walked into your life a year sooner, you might have still been healing from the last one. Had the door opened at the time you prayed for it, you might have stepped through with the wrong mindset. Sometimes God withholds the blessing so that by the time it reaches you, you recognize its value. You no longer handle it casually. You no longer question whether you deserve it. You no longer rely on other people to validate it. You walk into it with the full awareness that what God has for you is for you. And no delay, no detour, no distraction could have kept it from you once he said, now you're ready. Readiness also reveals itself in how you respond to the waiting season. Some people collapse under the weight of waiting. Others become bitter, angry, resentful, or envious. But there are those who, even in the waiting, say, Lord, shape me, stretch me, teach me. These are the individuals God can trust with greater. Because readiness shows itself in how you handle the seasons that don't make sense. When you learn to worship without answers. When you learn to trust without clarity. When you learn to obey without seeing results, that level of faith creates spiritual maturity. And spiritual maturity is the foundation God builds destiny upon. There are moments when you won't see what God is doing, but he's still working. Like a seed beneath the soil, growth is happening even when it's hidden. In fact, some of the most important development happens where no one can see it. Because God grows you privately before he positions you publicly. He strengthens your roots before he displays your fruit. And sometimes readiness comes in the form of isolation. God will pull you away from circles that can't go where he's taking you. He will strip away habits that keep you tied to old mindsets. He will close doors you didn't have the courage to close yourself. And while it may feel like loss, it's actually preparation. Before God elevates you, he refines you. You may be in a season right now where everything looks still, quiet, uneventful, even disappointing, but stillness doesn't mean stagnation. Silence doesn't mean absence. This might be the season where God is cultivating you, the season where God is teaching you how to hear him more clearly. The season where God is strengthening your character, your discipline, your faith. And even though you cannot yet see the manifestation, something in your spirit is growing. Something in your identity is solidifying. Something in your purpose is awakening. And when God sees that the internal work has been completed, he releases the external blessing. Many of us are praying for elevation without realizing that elevation requires endurance. You cannot step into the next level without shedding the weight of the last one. Readiness is when you stop praying for God to adjust the circumstance and start praying for God to adjust you. When you no longer ask for lighter burdens, but for stronger shoulders. When you stop resisting the process and begin embracing it. That is when God says, now you're ready. When God knows you're ready, he releases clarity. Suddenly, things that were once confusing begin to make sense. Situations that once broke you begin to reveal their purpose. People who left your life no longer feel like loss, they feel like alignment. When God knows you're ready, he releases opportunities. Doors that were once impossible to access swing open effortlessly. Rooms you were once intimidated to enter now feel like places you were always meant to inhabit. When God knows you're ready, he releases healing, not surface level healing, but deep, transformative, generational healing. Healing that frees you from patterns you didn't realize were suffocating you. Healing that allows you to finally breathe differently. And when God knows you're ready, he releases identity. You stop questioning who you are. You stop apologizing for who you are. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop disqualifying yourself in rooms God sent you to influence. You begin walking with a new posture, a new mindset, a new level of spiritual authority. Because when God declares that you're ready, heaven backs you, hell fears you, destiny opens to you. And you step forward, not as the person you used to be, not as the person you pretended to be, but as the person you were always designed to be. Readiness is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of faith that outweighs fear. It is not the absence of uncertainty. It is the courage to move even when the path is unclear. It is not about having all the answers. It is about trusting the one who does. And the moment you embrace that trust fully, something shifts, something aligns, something unlocks, because readiness is not a moment, it's a becoming. This message found you today because God saw something in you that perhaps you haven't yet recognized in yourself. Something in your spirit matured, something in your heart healed, something in your mindset expanded. You are not where you used to be. You are not who you used to be. And even if you can't see the fullness of it yet, heaven can. Heaven knows when you're ready, even before you do. And when God knows you're ready, he sends confirmation. He sends signs. He sends messages. He sends moments like this one, interrupting your day, interrupting your thoughts, whispering to your spirit that the season you've been praying for is closer than you think. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You are being prepared, positioned, and propelled. The timing isn't random. It's divine. And when God knows you're ready, everything connected to your purpose begins to shift in your favor. When we talk about what God conceals before he reveals, we're speaking about one of the most misunderstood parts of the spiritual journey. Because we live in a world that celebrates visibility, that rewards exposure, that claps the loudest for what can be seen, touched, posted, praised, or applauded. But God, in his infinite wisdom, often chooses to do his greatest work in the dark. Not the dark of punishment, not the dark of abandonment, but the dark of protection. There are seasons where God intentionally hides you, hides your gifts, hides your ideas, hides your opportunities, hides your potential, and sometimes even hides you from yourself. Not because you're unworthy, not because you're forgotten, but because heaven understands the danger of premature exposure. What God conceals is never wasted space. It is not God ignoring you, and it is not God rejecting you. Concealment is a divine strategy. It is God saying, I need to strengthen you privately before I position you publicly. Because if you step into visibility too soon, the weight of being seen will become heavier than the foundation beneath you. There are mantles you're meant to carry, but they require maturity. There are rooms you're meant to enter, but they require stability. There are platforms you're meant to stand on, but they require integrity. And God loves you too much to let you be crushed by a blessing you weren't ready to sustain. Picture a seed Before anything grows upward, everything must first grow downward. The roots form in the hidden places. The structure stabilizes in the soil, under pressure in darkness. No one celebrates the root. No one praises the process happening beneath the surface. Yet, without that unseen growth, the tree can never stand. That's what your concealed season looks like. It's the place where God is forming roots of humility, roots of discipline, roots of discernment, roots of consistency, roots of identity, roots of spiritual depth. Because if you grow up fast without growing down deep, the first storm that hits your life will uproot you. There are things God hides because he's building weight in you, building capacity, building wisdom, building sharper spiritual instincts. You may be praying, God, reveal my purpose, while God is saying, I'm still building the version of you who can carry that purpose without losing yourself. You may be asking, God, show me what's next, while God is whispering, not yet. What I'm preparing will require emotional resilience you are still developing. You may be begging for opportunities while heaven is saying, the door is ready, but you're not. And if you walk through it too early, you won't last. So he conceals, he covers, he shields, he protects, and often we misinterpret his protection as punishment. We question ourselves, we compare ourselves, we wonder why others seem to be sprinting while we are still in what feels like a waiting room. But what you call delay, God calls development. What you call silence, God calls shaping. What you call being overlooked, God calls being kept. There are some blessings that can only survive in the womb of secrecy. Think about Mary carrying Jesus, the Savior of the world, growing inside a young woman, hidden from the world, hidden from scrutiny, hidden from danger until the fullness of time came. Concealment isn't punishment, it's incubation. There are seeds of purpose inside of you right now that God refuses to expose prematurely because the environment around you is not yet safe for what's growing within you. Sometimes God conceals your gift because the people around you wouldn't honor it. They'd mishandle it, misuse it, or manipulate it. Sometimes he hides your potential because the people connected to you in one season cannot go with you into the next. Sometimes he keeps your breakthrough hidden because if you received it now, you'd share it with the wrong people, or you'd settle for a smaller version of what he intended. Concealment protects destiny from contamination. And then there are seasons when God conceals you because you still see yourself through the lens of past wounds. He cannot reveal what's next until he heals what was. He cannot trust you to steward greatness while you're still battling voices that tell you you're not enough. He cannot elevate you if you're still anchoring your worth in other people's opinions. So he hides you while he performs internal surgery. He conceals you while he detoxes your identity. He shields you while he silences the lies that once defined you. Concealment becomes the place where you finally learn to see yourself the way heaven sees you. There's a reason why God does some of his most transformative work in solitude. There's a reason why isolation often precedes elevation. Because when God removes distractions, he can finally reveal truth. When he removes noise, he can finally speak clearly. When he removes certain relationships, he can finally get your undivided attention. And in the concealed place, you discover parts of yourself you didn't know existed. Strength you didn't know you had. Capacity you didn't know was possible. Gifting you didn't recognize. Once God pulls you away from the voices that cloud your vision, he begins to reveal the power that has been within you all along. Power that would have gone unnoticed if he exposed you too soon. And yet, concealment can feel like contradiction. How can God give you a vision for greatness yet keep you hidden? How can he promise elevation yet keep you unseen? How can he place fire in your spirit yet place you in a season that feels silent? The contradiction is intentional. God uses contradiction to build character. He allows tension to build trust. He allows the unseen season to build obedience. If you can stay faithful while hidden, you can stay grounded when revealed. If you can remain disciplined when no one is watching, God knows He can trust you when everyone is. There are assignments connected to your life that require spiritual endurance. And endurance is built in the shadows, not in the spotlight. Endurance is formed in the prayers you pray alone, in the obedience no one applauds, in the sacrifices no one acknowledges, in the growth no one witnesses. And while you're developing endurance, God is watching. Heaven is documenting. Your angels are preparing for the moment of unveiling, because revelation always follows preparation. Another reason God conceals is because timing matters. God doesn't only prepare you, He prepares circumstances around you. He prepares people. He aligns opportunities. He organizes resources. He positions the right voices. He moves obstacles that would interfere with your destiny. You may think He is withholding, but He is actually arranging. Heaven is strategic. God is not going to reveal you until the atmosphere around you is properly aligned with the calling within you. Because when God reveals something, He reveals it in fullness, not fragments. Some of you have been asking God why your gift isn't being recognized, why your calling isn't unfolding, why doors aren't opening. But God is saying there is someone you must meet first. There is a connection that must take place. There is a shift in your character that must happen. There is a maturity you must reach. There is an environment that must stabilize. And until all of these divine details align, I will keep you concealed. He conceals until revelation will not ruin you. He conceals until success will not sabotage you. He conceals until your spirit is anchored enough not to be moved by applause or shattered by rejection. Revelation comes with pressure. It comes with responsibilities. It comes with spiritual warfare. It comes with scrutiny. It comes with accountability. And God will never send you into visibility unarmored. He will equip you in the hidden place. He will fortify your confidence. He will refine your discernment. He will strengthen your voice. By the time He reveals you, you'll walk into the room with a strength you forged in private, a strength that cannot be shaken because it was built in secret. Though some of the most painful experiences of your life were actually forms of concealment, doors that closed were God protecting you, people who walked away were God removing access, opportunities that fell apart were God redirecting you. It didn't feel like protection at the time. It felt like heartbreak, disappointment, rejection. But now, looking back, you can see that if certain doors had stayed open, you would have ended up in places that weren't meant to contain you. If certain people remained in your life, they would have pulled you out of alignment. If certain opportunities had come through, you would have settled instead of stretched. Concealment doesn't always look like hiding. Sometimes it looks like loss. But heaven sees it as preservation. And you know what else God conceals? He conceals your enemies' plans. He blinds their eyes to your growth. He confuses their strategies. He keeps your progress out of their sight until the moment you emerge with such strength that nothing they attempt can stop you. God will hide you from the enemy's reach while He equips you with spiritual authority. He will hide your blessing from the enemy's interference. He will hide your next step so that nothing and no one can sabotage it. Sometimes the reason your life feels quiet is because heaven is working louder than hell can interfere. Then comes the moment, divine timing, when God begins to reveal. The unveiling never happens violently. It happens in layers, in shifts, in divine alignment. Suddenly clarity comes. Suddenly connections appear. Suddenly, opportunities that were once dead come alive. Suddenly, you feel something unlocking within you, not because you pushed, not because you forced, not because you hustled, but because the time was right. God never reveals before the time, but when the time comes, no force in hell can conceal what God has ordained to be revealed. The season of hiddenness breaks and the season of visibility begins. But you don't step into it as the version who entered concealment. You emerge stronger, wiser, more grounded, more aligned, more anointed, more clear about your identity and purpose. You emerge as the refined version of yourself, the one God was shaping all along. Revelation becomes powerful because concealment was honored. And what God reveals, he sustains. What he reveals, he empowers. What he reveals, he protects. What he reveals, he multiplies. But he cannot reveal what you are unwilling to let him conceal. Your willingness to trust God in the unseen determines your ability to carry what he reveals in the seen. So if you find yourself in a season where nothing makes sense, where everything feels quiet, where doors seem closed, where progress feels slow, where your prayers seem unanswered, consider this. Maybe God is not withholding. Maybe he is concealing. Maybe he is covering something precious. Maybe he is shielding something powerful. Maybe he is protecting something sacred. Maybe he is preparing the version of you who will be strong enough, wise enough, and courageous enough to hold what he is getting ready to reveal. Becoming the person your calling requires is one of the most sacred, stretching, uncomfortable, transformative journeys you will ever walk through. Because a calling is not just an assignment, it is an identity. It is not just what you do, it is who you must become. And God, in his intentional, deeply personal way, will always shape the vessel before he pours the oil. He will always refine the character before he releases the call. He will always build the person before he unveils the purpose. Your calling is bigger than your comfort. It's bigger than your personality. It's bigger than your insecurities, your wounds, your history, your fears, and your limitations. And the moment God places a calling on your life, heaven begins shaping you into the version of yourself who can carry it without collapsing under its weight. This part of the journey is often the most misunderstood because many people fall in love with the idea of purpose without embracing the process that purpose requires. We love the vision but resist the stretching. We love the prophecy but resist the pruning. We love the promise but resist the preparation. But your calling cannot rest on a foundation that was never strengthened. God will always take you through a transformational journey because he knows that purpose is not sustained by talent, gifting, or passion alone. Purpose is sustained by character, discipline, humility, resilience, spiritual depth, and obedience. God is not just preparing a life for you, he is preparing you for the life. Becoming the person your calling requires means God will confront every version of you that cannot go where you're headed. The insecure version of you, the fearful version of you, the passive version of you, the wounded version of you, the self-sabotaging version of you, the I'm not enough version of you, the I need people to approve me version of you. Those versions cannot carry destiny. They can't carry glory. They can't carry responsibility. They can't carry leadership. They can't carry influence. So God begins the tearing down, the rebuilding, the reshaping, the refining. And sometimes it feels like everything around you is being shaken, when in reality, it's everything within you that is being transformed. The calling requires a fortified identity. You cannot walk in destiny if you still believe the lies spoken over you. You cannot carry spiritual authority if you are still anchored to the voices of people who wounded you. You cannot stand confidently in who you are if you still view yourself through the lens of trauma or rejection. So God begins the work of breaking internal chains. He dismantles mindsets that kept you small. He exposes lies that kept you silent. He uproots beliefs that kept you stuck. And even though this healing process can feel painful, it is essential. Because purpose cannot flow through a fractured identity. Purpose cannot be stewarded by someone who doesn't know who they are. Purpose requires you to stand in the fullness of who God designed you to be, not the version life taught you to become. Then comes the development of discipline. Purpose is not impulsive. Purpose is intentional. It requires consistency. It requires sacrifice. It requires conviction. It requires stewardship. God will teach you how to master your habits, your patterns, your time, your thoughts, your relationships, your speech, your reactions. Because destiny is not built on moments of excitement. Destiny is built on habits sustained over time. There will be seasons where God trains you in silence, teaching you consistency when no one applauds you, discipline when no one notices, obedience when no one is watching. Because if your calling is going to impact people publicly, you must master discipline privately. Becoming the person your calling requires also means you must develop spiritual maturity. You cannot carry purpose without prayer being your anchor. You cannot walk in destiny without discernment guiding your steps. You cannot move in calling without intimacy with God shaping your decisions. So God deepens your prayer life. He heightens your discernment. He teaches you how to hear his voice louder than the noise of the world. He draws you closer, not because you're weak, but because your calling requires divine strength. You cannot fulfill a God-sized assignment with human-sized power. You cannot walk in supernatural purpose without supernatural dependence. And then God begins to stretch your capacity. Capacity isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more. It's about expanding your emotional resilience, your mental strength, your spiritual depth, your patience, your compassion, your leadership, your courage. God will stretch you through challenges that force you to grow. He will place you in environments that require you to rise. He will allow situations that demand you think differently, respond differently, act differently. Not because he's testing you, but because he's training you. He's shaping you into someone who can carry the magnitude of the calling on your life without breaking under the pressure of it. And during this journey, God will also call you into alignment. Alignment with the right relationships, alignment with the right environments, alignment with the right influences, because purpose cannot thrive everywhere. Your calling cannot be nurtured by people who only knew the old version of you. Destiny cannot grow in soil that chokes your identity. So God will shift your circle. He will remove people who drain you. He will disconnect you from relationships that distract you. He will close doors to environments that stunt your growth. And though you may grieve these shifts, you must understand pruning always precedes elevation. God removes what cannot nourish your calling so that he can surround you with what will. But we must seek our own. Becoming the person your calling requires also means developing emotional intelligence. Purpose demands maturity in how you handle conflict, rejection, criticism, betrayal, disappointment. God will allow certain experiences not to break you, but to build emotional resilience. You will learn how not to take everything personally. You will learn how to respond instead of react. You will learn how to set boundaries without guilt. You will learn how to let go of what burdens you. Because your calling is too important for you to be derailed by offense or consumed by emotional instability. Then there's the strengthening of your faith. Purpose requires faith at levels you've never had to walk in before. Faith to obey when the instructions don't make sense. Faith to move when the path is unclear. Faith to trust God when his timing feels delayed. Faith to walk away from what is familiar. Faith to believe in what you cannot yet see. And God will stretch your faith through moments that feel uncomfortable. You will have to lean on God in ways you never have. You will have to trust him in depths that scare you. Because purpose cannot be fulfilled in comfort. Purpose requires courage. And courage is birthed in places where fear tries to dominate. As God transforms you, he also clarifies your voice. Your calling is connected to the sound you release into the world, your message, your influence, your impact, your story. But your voice cannot carry clarity when it is still entangled with insecurity. So God purifies your voice. He strips away comparison. He removes the need for validation. He dismantles your fear of being misunderstood. He strengthens your confidence to speak truth, to stand firm, to walk boldly in what he gave you. You don't need to sound like anyone else. You don't need to imitate anyone else. Your calling requires your voice authentic, unapologetic, and aligned with heaven's assignment for your life. There will be seasons when God is still shaping you and you feel invisible. Seasons where you're growing but no one sees it. Seasons where you're evolving but not yet recognized. That invisibility isn't punishment, it's preparation. God hides you while he builds the version of you who will not crumble under visibility. The spotlight is not safe until strength is secure. God will protect your destiny long before he presents you to the world. And in becoming the person your calling requires, God will teach you how to break cycles. Cycles of fear, cycles of procrastination, cycles of self-sabotage, cycles of negative thinking, cycles of generational patterns that were never meant to follow you into your future. Your calling has the power to break what has been repeating in your family line for decades. But you cannot break cycles you are still participating in. God empowers you to confront what has been limiting you. He strengthens you to stand against what once controlled you. He reveals the patterns so he can break them through you. God will also teach you stewardship. Stewardship of your mind, stewardship of your relationships, stewardship of your finances, stewardship of your influence, stewardship of your spiritual gifts. Your calling cannot flourish without stewardship. God will test how you handle little before he gives you much. He watches how you treat opportunities that seem small. He watches how you treat people others overlook. He watches how you handle responsibilities you don't feel are glamorous. Because your future elevation is connected to your present stewardship. Another layer of becoming the person your calling requires is understanding sacrifice. Purpose has a cost. You cannot walk in destiny without giving up what distracts you. You cannot carry purpose while clinging to comfort. You cannot step into calling while holding on to habits that drain you. There will be things you must release. There will be versions of yourself you must bury. There will be desires, relationships, lifestyles, attachments you must surrender. But everything you sacrifice creates space for what God is building in you. And perhaps the most transformative part of becoming the person your calling requires is learning to trust yourself. Not in the sense of relying on your own strength, but trusting the God inside of you. Trusting that you are hearing him. Trusting that the growth you feel is real. Trusting that you can walk in rooms you once felt unworthy of. Trusting that your calling is legitimate. Trusting that your voice matters. Trusting that you have been prepared for what is ahead. Because God can call you, equip you, position you, but if you don't trust the person he is shaping you into, you will sabotage what he gives you. Growth will stretch you, healing will challenge you, alignment will refine you, discipline will mature you, faith will anchor you, wisdom will ground you, courage will propel you. But all of this is part of the process. God is not asking you to become someone new. He is revealing who you have always been beneath the layers of fear, brokenness, insecurity, and life conditioning. The calling is pulling the true you forward, the you God designed. The you he envisioned before you were born. The you the world hasn't fully seen yet. And every step of the journey shapes you further into that version. As you grow into the person your calling requires, the things that once triggered you won't touch you the same way. The things that once intimidated you won't shake you. The things that once confused you won't distract you. Because purpose sharpens focus. Growth purifies vision. Calling aligns identity. And the more God develops you, the more you begin to walk like someone who knows they were created with intention, crafted with purpose, and positioned with destiny in mind. Becoming the person your calling requires means embracing evolution. It means letting God stretch you beyond who you thought you could be. It means releasing the old you with gratitude, but without regret. It means walking boldly into the future God designed with faith that everything He is shaping in you is necessary, intentional, and divine. Because what's coming will require strength, it will require courage, it will require spiritual authority, it will require wisdom. And God is making sure you are equipped for all of it.